Good evening to you both, and let's begin with the Finance Minister today delivering the first quarter update.
While we can't control external factors, we can control our spending to protect the vital services Albertans rely on. We carefully save during the good years, and in years like this one, we stick to our fiscal framework and make responsible fiscal decisions so that important government services remain viable.
And here are the details. The government projecting the 2025-26 deficit will reach $6.5 billion, up $1.3 billion from what was forecast in the spring budget. Key among reasons for the increase, 38% decline in natural resource revenue, added pressure from population growth, and of course, tariff threats. So, Donna, the minister acknowledged that this is a big shift from the $8+ billion surplus announced just 5 months ago. How do you feel Albertans should absorb this first quarter update and the message the government is sending here?
To be honest, I had a bit of a sigh of relief. I know this is tough, but we are the best in the country. This is as good as it can be in Canada right now. And I thought his tone was measured. We do save in times when we've got profits that we're not planning for, and we have to be ready for this kind of thing to happen. We've had the uncertainty of trade with the United States and trade with everybody else. We've got oil prices slipping below what we estimated, and now they've done a downward prediction for the rest of the year. And we've got some union negotiations that are going on that have added to cost of living, and putting in place that $4 billion fund to deal with wildfire and other emergencies makes a lot of sense. You're not constantly going back to Treasury Board and asking for that money out of other funds. So I think they positioned us well. Again, we're the best in the country. This is not an easy time for anybody to govern. And I thought the minister's tone was really spot on.
Lise, the government today says it is prepared to make tough yet prudent choices. What tone do you feel that sets for how it approaches the road forward, especially considering ongoing labor negotiations?
Are you asking me, Michael?
Yes. You bet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think that, the fiscal update in part is setting the stage for these important contract negotiations that are currently underway with the public service and, of course, the Alberta teachers who voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike. So the message is we have no money. I mean, I realize it's a very difficult time with the tariff war and declines in oil revenues, but at the same time, we know that the way to deal with this, I do differ from Donna on this, is with a more sensible fiscal structure. We're over-reliant on resource revenues, and that forces us into a boom-bust cycle. Even within the space of a few months, we've gone from a surplus to a deficit. So, I think we need a stable, fair tax system, and that's what this is telling us.
Donna, what kind of stage does this set for false-hitting expectations and any further big spending plans the government may be contemplating?
Well, I think there are a lot of big spending plans on the books. I mean, we're going to talk about this in today is the kind of investment in downtown Edmonton. We've seen investment in downtown Calgary. None of those things are going to stop. We need to attract investment. There's talk of attracting AI centers to Alberta. If we turn tail on our strategy on taxation because of this bump in the road, and again, we're the most comfortable province in the entire country, I think that sends a very bizarre message to investors that we're not serious about this. I think we're very serious about who we are as Albertans, and making sure our tax regime continues to be effective and responsible and inviting for investors is very, very important. So I thought this measured, we anticipated this, we're planning for this, we're going to stay the course was actually a really solid message to be delivering to everyone.
All right, so let's shift gears to the Alberta Next panel. It landed in Lloydminster Wednesday evening. They discussed ways to shield the province from federal overreach.
My sense is that a plurality of Albertans are already committed to voting yes to leaving. Don't wait for the people of Alberta to force your government to schedule a referendum.
I want to reiterate my responses to all 6 of your topics. I do not like them, and I feel that the answers were forced and very biased.
Now, while some expressed disagreement, as we heard there was enthusiastic support for the panel in Lloydminster, and as with previous events, straw polls done after each topic showed overwhelming number of hands raised in support for each of the government's 6 proposals. The panel heads to Medicine Hat next week, the first of 5 town halls scheduled through September. Lise, Lloydminster marked the midway point for the Alberta Next schedule of events. What's your read on the role it is playing so far in advancing the agenda of the Smith government?
Well, it is advancing the agenda of the Smith government. I mean, this panel really seems purpose-built to rally rural and conservative bases by stoking grievances without addressing, real everyday concerns that we're all having about the state of the healthcare system or the education system. So, earlier this week we saw, the Alberta Next panel in Fort McMurray, and there, in response to a comment about the Alberta pension plan proposal, one of the attendees accused the government of fiscal mismanagement and there was a lack of trust from this person and others who clapped about moving to an Alberta pension plan. So I wonder, whether there was a really concerted effort to get UCP supporters out to this Lethbridge Alberta Next panel. There were some disturbing applause on comments about limiting immigration. We really haven't seen, the kind of populism that we practice in this province leaning towards anti-immigrant sentiments in this way, and I think that's pretty worrying. So again, I don't think this is about stoking up support for the government's agenda. It's not about consultation, democratic consultation at all.
Donna, having sat on the Kenney government's Fair Deal panel, how are you reflecting on the dialogue emerging thus far from Alberta Next?
Actually, it's got some very common threads to my own experience sitting on the Fair Deal panel. I disagree with Lise. I think that these conversations are happening at kitchen tables and they need to happen in public. I think the question about equalization payments is much better understood than it was during the Fair Deal panel days, and I think that's a positive thing. This whole question about, whether Alberta should separate or not separate and acceptance of the status quo is, people are starting to understand that the deal struck in Confederation and approved by Peter Lougheed later, it isn't really working right now with the population shifts that are taking place. So I think as hard as these conversations are, we need to have them. Lloydminster itself is kind of interesting. I recall when we had the Fair Deal panel discussions there, it brings in a lot of people who are close to Saskatchewan. Obviously, the city lives on the border of Saskatchewan and Alberta. And I found that really interesting because I think, what's the state of Saskatchewan? How are the people there thinking? Are they thinking like Albertans? And I think that would be interesting to understand. And I see some of that reflected in what was going on in Lloyd. So I think bring it on. I mean, we're mature people. I just think we have to get through these conversations. And a lot of people are okay with the status quo. A lot of people want to separate, and a lot of people are just, somewhere in between. And I'm in between, and I want something better. But how we get there is going to take a lot of work, and this is part of it.
We heard from Edmonton Mayor Amarjeet Sohi off the top on a pair of current issues that overlap with the provincial government. Donna, let's start on this week's Event Centre approval. To what degree do you see it echoing dynamics that played out on the cusp of the last provincial election, the deal leading to the Calgary Arena project?
Oh, I think the parallels are striking. It's always interesting to me that what happens in Edmonton happens in Calgary. What happens in Calgary happens in Edmonton. We're two cities that keep doing that. We kind of learn from each other. When you have a negotiation like this that's happening in public, it's really difficult. And I know there's been, tension around, it's an ultimatum, take it or leave it. That happens in negotiations. I negotiated for half of my career, and it's a tactic. And the problem is it's playing out in public, and it's very, very difficult. we've also got public money mixed with private sector money. And you know, these organizations that own our athletic organizations are important to the cities, but they're also powerful and influential. And how much power do they hold? So I think it's predictable. You know, frankly, I'm grateful as an Albertan that we can have these conversations and we can have these kinds of investments. There are lots of places in Canada where they're not having these kinds of conversations because there isn't the public sector or private sector capacity to make these investments. So good on us. These are tough things to do, but I think they're really important. And as hard as it is to negotiate in public, I think they'll get there.
Lise, let's jump to Amarjeet Sohi. What do you make of his rationale for not seeking another term or a second term?
Well, look, you know, my sense about Sohi is that it's been hard for him his entire political career, from his time on council to his time as a federal councillor, a cabinet minister, excuse me, to more recently as mayor of Edmonton, but also he had a failed run for Parliament. You know, he has had a long and exhausting political career, one in which he's experienced quite a bit of racism. So I can imagine that he's tired after a failed federal campaign like his. A lot of people take some time off. He's had to go right back to being mayor. So I imagine that he's tired. I see him as having been a good mayor and having accomplished a lot during a difficult term, you know, which included, of course, the pandemic.
Donna, what kind of stage do you see being set for the upcoming mayoral races in Edmonton and Calgary? And what's your take on Amarjeet Sohi calling it quits?
Oh, I think after 18 years, he deserves to be able to call it quits. I certainly do not see him as a victim, though. I think he's been you know, he's had great opportunities, he's seized opportunities, and he's gone through with them. So I certainly wouldn't call him a victim. In terms of the races coming up, I mean, things are getting very heated in Calgary. There are a lot of issues. There's a lot of public angst. There's frustration. There's a call for change. We have a lot of candidates in the race, and now with the, you know, the political party affiliation thing kind of in the mix, I think there's some public confusion about that as well. So it's going to be a heated race, I think, for sure, in Calgary.
And real quick, Lise, heated race in Edmonton as well? You have about 30 seconds.
Pardon me, bike lanes, did you say?
No, Edmonton's race, Edmonton's mayoral race.
Edmonton's mayoral race, yeah, no, it's heating up as well. We've got a lot of candidates, and of course the you know, the recent the vote on the arena park has really, you know, been something that has captured the public attention at this point. But there's a lot of issues in this race, including the downtown core, including you know, the great need for public housing and infill and so on. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. It feels like it hasn't really started yet in the same way that Calgary's has started. But just going back to another point, just because I say that Sohi has experienced racism, that doesn't mean I call him a victim. So there's a distinction there that I think is important.
Okay, I'm afraid we're out of time. We have to leave it there. Great to see you both. Thank you kindly.
Take care. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Donna.